Hey friends, Madison and I are both over the age of 21 and everything we're doing is legal in Chicago. Please drink responsibly.
You're kidding.
You're kidding. Hey guys, before we start the episode this week, I just wanted to pop in and talk about why it might not sound like all our other ones. This is a never-before-heard Lord of the Rings themed episode that we recorded for a fantasy lit class I was in, and this was all before we decided to officially do the podcast together. It's really long, so this is part 1 of 2, but I hope you enjoy. So we don't really have like a title for this podcast, but this is like Drunk History meets Lord of the Rings, is what I'm thinking.
Drunk literary history.
Yes.
Thank you.
Cheers to that. So I just wanted to start off with like a little, why don't you introduce yourself? Here, my name is Jayce. I'm your host today, and Maddison.
I am Maddison. I am the guest. Follow me on Instagram at Maddison Deno.
Period.
Spelled like Denal.
I was about to say, that's so funny. So, okay, tell me how you feel about Lord of the Rings.
I gotta tell you, I don't know anything about Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Except that Martin Freeman is it. That's the right name, right? Okay.
I just got
really scared that that was not a person. And also that guy, that Dobby.
Oh
no,
my God.
is that it?
Dobby from Harry Potter.
Oh shit. No.
Yeah.
Never mind, I take it back.
I mean, there is a character that sort of looks like Dobby.
That's what I know what it looks like anyway.
But elves are very different in the two universes, I will say.
But I do think that if I read/watched it, I would be into it because I'm into like fantasy things.
Okay, fair.
You know, but I've never. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good for you. We are going to do this fun little thing today where I explain all of this stuff. Okay, so the first section of The Lord of the Rings is the Fellowship of the Ring, right? And it starts with a birthday party. So, okay, I'm going to backtrack a bit. There's this thing called The Hobbit.
And you're drinking out of a birthday wine glass.
I know, happy birthday, Bilbo. Bilbo has 2 birthdays in this series. One at the beginning, and not to spoil it, but one at the end. I have no... Oh, September, Libra. I know, this is me. I'm Frodo.
I love Libra. Oh, sorry, continue.
So, it starts with a birthday party, right? Okay, so Bilbo is from The Hobbit, which was a book that came before Lord of the Rings. In which there's this hobbit guy who are these like halfling people, if we're gonna equate it to like Dungeons and Dragons stuff, you know? And Bilbo is one of them. And one day, I'm not gonna explain the entirety of The Hobbit, but all these people come to his house and they're like, you have to save the world, and he does, right? And then he comes home and now he's old. And then he adopts this kid named Frodo, right?
Great name.
Yeah, I agree. Elijah Wood.
That's the name I thought.
You thought Dobby was Frodo? Elijah Wood? Don't do me dirty like that.
No, I thought the character of the Gollum was
named Frodo?
Yes.
Oh, well, no, but fun fact, Gollum used to be like a sort of hobbit-like creature, and then he got the ring, which I'll explain later, and then it corrupted him and made him super gross, and now he's like old and weird and evil.
Stinky.
Stinky. I'm sure he is stinky, honestly. But so Bilbo adopts Frodo, essentially, and is like, I will raise you, because Frodo's parents there's like a whole thing that happened. And so the book starts off with all these hobbits gossiping about, like, Bilbo's money that he got from his previous adventure in The Hobbit. And they're like, he keeps shit in his walls, and we're gonna get it, you know? And it's like,
wait, like shit in his walls, or like shit
no,
in
like
his walls?
gold and things from his
I'm just making sure.
No,
I don't know.
I love that. But so they're like gossiping about Frodo or whatever, and it's like his birthday's coming up, and for hobbits on their birthdays, when it's your birthday, you give presents to the people that come to your party, and so everyone's like, we're coming to Frodo's, or it was both of their birthday parties.
Great way to get people to come to your party.
Yeah, it's his 111st birthday is 111. That's how old Bilbo's turning, and I think Frodo was turning like 33 or something. I don't know if that's right, but So he's like throwing this big ass party, and like Gandalf, who's this wizard friend who helped him in The Hobbit, comes into town, and he's got all these cool fireworks, and they throw this really cool party, and like Bilbo's giving all this shit away. And then at like the end of his party, he's like, okay, I've gathered like 144 of my closest friends, and we're eating, and we're being merry, and I'm gonna give a speech now. And he gets up and he's like, I hate a lot of you. And he's like really rude, but he's like clever about it. So all the hobbits are like, what, you know? But he's like kind of mean, and it's really funny, and he insults them a little bit. And then he's like, bye. And then he disappears. And everyone's like, what? And so it turns out he has this thing that is the magical ring to rule them all, right? Which is this ring that was forged by I don't want to get this lore wrong. I feel like if I get this lore wrong, I'm gonna get in trouble, but I'm just a little drunk.
You're not gonna get in trouble.
I don't know. It was forged by these guys. There's all these rings that are scattered across this universe, right? And there's one that rules them all, and it's like Sauron, right, is this guy who's super evil, and he wants the ring, but it was taken from him, and Gollum had it, and in The Hobbit, Bilbo got it from Gollum.
Okay.
And because he like stole it. And so Bilbo kept it, but it's this kind of evil ring. And he like, when you put it on, it makes you invisible also. And so he had put on the ring, and he like ran home, and he was like playing a little trick on everybody where he was like, I just wanted to freak everyone out. And then he was like, and now I'm leaving the Shire, which is where all the hobbits live, is the Shire. He's like, I'm leaving the Shire forever. Goodbye. But then he's like, but maybe I should take the ring with me. And Gandalf comes into his house after the party and is like, don't take that with you. Like, what are you? No, it's evil. Like, we all know it's evil. Like, yeah. You don't know. You can't steal it, you know? And Bilbo gets, like, angry. And he's like, fuck you, man. Like, I want... They don't say fucking Lord. But he's like, yeah. I hate you. I want it. And then Gandalf's like, I will kill you. Well, he doesn't say that. But he's like, I will kill you. I'm just kidding. He's like, stop it. He, like, threatens him back. And then Bilbo's like, I'm so sorry, Gandalf. I don't know what came over me. And then he, like, leaves it for Frodo. Right, he like leaves it for his like essentially like his son, right? Yes. And so Frodo like deals with the aftermath of the party, right? And he comes home and he like meets up with Gandalf, and Gandalf tells him essentially what I just told you about how there's all these rings and this one's sort of evil, and he throws it in the fire, and it's like it doesn't melt if you light it on fire, like it doesn't burn unless you throw it into Mount Doom, which is in Mordor. Okay. And that's the end destination for the journey. So I need you to lock that in. Mordor, right? That's the place. Of doom. And Mount Doom. It's a mountain of doom. It's essentially got some like lava in it. And if you throw that shit in, then Sauron can't rise to power, right? Which is the main villain of the story.
I'm really trying to remember.
I know. And if you don't, that's fine. I'm gonna drink a little bit. Okay. So yeah, they see like you have to throw the ring in the thing, and then we can overtake Sauron. And Frodo's like, well, fuck, I guess I gotta take this ring and, like, run away so that no one can get it. Not in, like, an evil way, but just in, like, until someone more qualified than me can figure this out, I will take it because Bilbo gave it to me, and I'll hide it. And Gandalf's like, bet you tell people you're gonna go this way, and then actually, like move out of the Shire, and then... After you've moved, essentially, so everyone everyone gossips, right? Everyone will know you've moved to this place, and then sneak off, and then go hide somewhere else, right? So we can confuse the enemy. Gandalf catches Sam Gamgee. Sam, he's really important.
Sam Gamgee.
Yeah.
That's me trying to remember it.
He catches them eavesdropping. And so he's like, well, what are we gonna do about this? And Sam's like, well, we'll come with you. You know what I mean? And he's like, we, and then he figures out that like these guys, Pippin, Merry, and Sam have all been, they've all been like gossiping essentially about Frodo and about how he's probably gonna leave soon, and like he's probably got this like hidden treasures, things like that. Like they like gossip, they've heard. And so they're like, okay, we're coming. And so they all move, and Gandalf has disappeared. And so they like spend more time in the Shire, and then Gandalf hasn't come back for like 1,000,000 years. And Frodo's like, I'm nervous because this is supposed to be super evil, so I'm just going to leave without Gandalf. And so these hobbits take off to go to this other place. They're in the forest, and they think things are following them. And it turns out they're right. There's this thing called a Black Rider, which is just like an evil guy who's following them, and they're really dangerous. And so they all hide, and they're like really fucking stressed out. And then they get to this guy named Farmer Maggot. He's not super important to this story, but they get to Farmer Maggot.
Oh, wait. What the fuck? What kind of name is that?
I know. There's a lot of Fatty Lumpkin is the name of a character,
but
and Fatty Bulger is another one. There's two fatties.
that's my drag name.
I love it. I love it.
Like,
Yeah, no, when I was reading the book, I was like, Fatty? Like, what is this?
Fatty Bulger?
Yeah.
That's my fucking drag name.
Literally, that's so funny.
Holy shit.
Gotta love
Farmer
Tolkien.
Maggot.
Gotta
That's a
love
little
Tolkien.
too close to the F word for me, I will say.
I know, Tolkien. Ooh, girly. So Merry and okay, so Frodo, Sam, and Pippin. This is so all over the place because I didn't remember this. Frodo, Sam, and Pippin head off towards Farmer Maggot's place, and Merry and Fatty go.
Which Fatty? Which there's two?
I think it's the horse Fatty. So I think Fatty Bulger is the horse, but I don't know if that's right. So Merry and Fatty, they go ahead, and they're like going off to like go to the actual destination. They stop at Farmer Maggot's, and then they're like, okay, let's continue traveling. And then one night they like see this figure coming towards them, and they're like, oh my god, it's another Black Rider, right? These things are so horrifying. And it turns out it's just Merry, and he's like, all right, boys, let's get to the city. Oh, okay, what's next? Okay, yeah, so they go to this new city, and Frodo's trying to, like, secretly leave without everybody. He's like, I can do it by myself. But then they're like, dude, Frodo, you've literally been saying things out loud, and you don't even realize that you're, like, giving away your plan out loud because you're so stressed out. And, like, we know, so we're coming with you to Rivendell, which is where the elves are. Well, Elrond, not all the elves, but the Council of Elrond is there. Elrond's this, like, powerful elf guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's a king. I think he might be a king.
Yeah.
But he's powerful elf.
A Jarl, if you will.
Yes. And so they set off to Rivendell. Oh, and then so they're like walking through the forest, and they pass out. Like something happens, they get charmed. This evil tree is like after them, and they get like trapped. And then they just hear this like guy singing a silly little song, and the tree is like, oh my god. And he like saves them. Because he's like, sing this song, and he's like, Tom Bombadil, like, that's like, he's like singing his name. His name's Tom Bombadil.
Yeah.
And he like takes all the hobbits and he saves them, and he brings them to his house, and he has this like really cool wife who's like taking care of them, and she's like, he's essentially like this all-powerful eternal being, but like not really, but like maybe. And then Tom Bombadil comes home, and he's like, if you ever get in trouble, just sing my song. And they're like, all
like
right.
Like a good neighbor, stay when it's there.
And then Tom Bombadil is like killing people. But so then they're like, all right, we're gonna set off again to Rivendell. And they like look out the window, and they like see the rolling plains or whatever that they have to walk through. And then they immediately set out, and they immediately get lost, and they get trapped by a wight. So the hobbits are captured, and then Tom saves them because of the song. And they like get all these weapons and horses that Tom brings with him, and they like set off. And they get to this place that has an inn, right? It's called the Prancing Pony Inn.
Yep. Yeah. That sounds like a gay bar.
Well, okay, so I have a theory that Sam and Frodo are gay and dating. And I just want you to keep that in mind as I tell this story, because it's important to me. So they get to the Prancing Pony, and everyone's like a little worried, but they're like, all right, well, we can just like chill and drink. And like Frodo goes in, but he like is using a different name. It's like Underhill is like this fake name he's using that Gandalf told him to use. And they're still like, where the fuck is Gandalf? Like, we've encountered all these crazy, scary things, and, like, Gandalf is nowhere to be seen. And so they go there, and then they see this, like, guy in, like, a cloak, and he's, like, sitting in the back of the bar as per D&D norms.
Oh, yeah.
And he's, like, being all mysterious, and, like, Frodo and, like, Sam, and essentially, like, Pippin, too, are all, like, getting hyped up by the patrons of the bar. They're, like, telling stories of, like, from the Shire, because like they're hobbits and everyone's getting drunk and having a good time. But there's like a couple sketchy people in the bar too. And then Frodo is
all I
like,
can think about right now is that TikTok about are there They're playing D&D, and they're like, but are there any milfs? And the dungeon, the dungeon master is like, roll an intuition check, and they're like, 17. Are there any milfs?
That is literally how our games go.
And then the dungeon master has to be like, yeah, there's
one milf. She's the bartender.
Oh my god, sorry. I couldn't hear anything you were saying because I was thinking about it.
So they get a little drunk.
Me right now.
Well. So they get a little drunk, and Frodo puts on the ring and disappears. And you know these bitches are gossiping all over the fucking land. I know. Tell me about it. But you know all these hobbits, like, they love to gossip. All the people in this whole universe love to gossip.
Yeah.
And so people know that, like, Bilbo has this ring that, like, was known to disappear. So they've, like, heard rumors of this disappearing, and they're like, what is this about? Because this is dangerous and, like, also super powerful. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And Strider, there's this guy, the guy in the cloak, his name's Strider, and he's like, I want to help you, like, why did you do that, dude? And they, like, go into this back room, and they're, like, kind of hanging out, and then Merry comes in. He hasn't been there the whole time, and he's like, oh my god, there's something evil here. Like, I saw a couple black riders in this town that we're in. Like, we need to, like, do something. But they can't really, like, leave. And so they switch rooms, and they, like, put, like, stuff the beds and stuff like that, and they go to sleep. They wake up the next morning, go into the rooms, and the room has just been torn to bits. Like, they totally would have been murdered if they had stayed the night there. It was, like, a really good move to, like, I don't know if it was Strider's idea. It probably was. He's like, and Strider's just, like, a dude. Like, he's just, like, he's not a hobbit or anything. He's just, like, a guy. Strider sings this song about, like, elves, and Sam, like, loves an elf. And they saw some elves at the beginning of their journey, too, and Sam was like, oh my god. And he, like, has this thing where he, like, really loves magic, and that's, like, a big thing about him, but he's, like, never seen magic. Yeah, like Chris Angel.
I don't even say that because I love Chris Angel. Well,
I am the mind freak! I watch that every day in high school.
It's such a, like, why is it... Why is it, like, Screamo mixed with magic?
Because, like, he was, like, emo, and, like, well, he still is. I saw him in 2018.
Emo magic is just so funny to me. Like, why is it
but
emo?
I was emo magic. That was me. I had his magic kit. Okay.
I know. I love. Okay.
So, yeah, so he sings this elf song, and they're like, wow, we love elves. And they're, like, going towards, it's not... Yeah, they're going towards Rivendell, right?
Yeah.
And then along the way, there's, like, 5 black riders that kind of, like, come up on them. And then one of them stabs Frodo. And it turns out it was, like, poison, and so he's in, like, a lot of pain, and he's, like, kind of dying, and they're like, shit, we need to get him to Rivendell so he can be healed, because there's nothing we can do to heal him right now, because it's, like, kind of cursed. You know what I mean? But, like, Aragorn kind of, scares him off. They, like, have this, like, big yelling match or whatever, but they leave. But Frodo has definitely been stabbed. Yeah. And so they travel for a few more days. And Frodo is, like, slipping in and out of consciousness, and he keeps seeing this, like, eye of, like, Sauron that's, like, this, like, thing that he perceives as, like, watching him, but before he feels like it can find him, it always stops. So he feels like it's searching. It's, like, very poetic. So, yeah, so they're, like, traveling, and Frodo's, like, really dying, and it's, like, a long way to Rivendell, and there's, like, a lot, they have to, like, hide a lot of the way. They can't take the path, because there's all these black riders searching for them. They're scared. Yeah. You know, they don't have any ways to defend themselves, and where is Gandalf? You know what I mean? Like, he's the powerful one. He's supposed to be a super powerful wizard. Like, where is he?
Oh my god.
And so they, like, go to this place, and they see on this bridge, there's, like, this brooch that's, like, pushed into the mud, and they pick it up, and he's like, this is a message from an elf guy, right? And he's telling us that, like, he's nearby, right? Or, like, he was just here, like, you know, like, there's just, like, a message, essentially. And that elf's name is Glorfindel. And you don't need to know that. Okay. But that's his name.
Okay.
And he, like, is taking them to Rivendell, and they, like, have to take the main road for the final stretch, even though it's super dangerous. Yeah. And then there's this big, like, standoff and this big fight. But, like, Frodo gets this, like, surge of energy, and he's like, hey! And he, like, yells at the Black Riders, and he's like, bring it! Like, I'm not scared of you. And then he starts speaking in Elvish. And he's, like, never spoke Elvish before. And he might be able to speak a little Elvish, that might be a lie. But he's, like, saying all these names that he, like, learned, I think, from Strider along the journey, because Strider had that elf song. And so he says all these names, and then the Black Riders are like, oh my god, like what? And then he's like sent on Glorfindel's horse across this thing. And so they're still fighting, and Frodo's on the other side, and he's like, bring it, come over this river, like, let's fight. And then as soon as they, like, get over, like, they start coming towards him, there's this big wave, and it, like, washes him out. And then Frodo, like, passes out, right? And so that's the end of the first half of the first book. First book,
yes,
in air quotes. So then part 2, Frodo wakes up in Rivendell, so he's made it, essentially. So, like, after the wave happened, he got, like, taken... They were, like, right outside the entrance. Mm-hmm. And he's healed, and everybody's there. Gandalf is there, and Bilbo is there. Even though Bilbo left, like, 20 years ago, he, like, sees Bilbo again, and he's like, oh my god, Dad, right? And Elrond is there, who's the elf guy, who's super powerful. Yes. And then Gloin is there, who is from The Hobbit, so you don't need to know... Well, you kind of need to know Gloin, but, like, not really. Okay. And then Gimli is there, who's this, like, dwarf guy.
Good name.
Yeah, I think so, too, honestly. And then Boromir is there.
Boar, such a boar.
Oh, yeah. And so he's there, too, and he's, like, a guy, like, a human. And there's this big feast, and they're like, oh my god, like, everybody's here, like, Council of Elrond summons, like, all my babes are here, you know.
Oh my god.
And then he learns that Bilbo and Strider are friends, and they know each other. And he's like, what? Like, everybody knows each other? Like, this is news to me. Yeah. Like, I just was trusting Strider blindly because I thought he would be helpful, you know, but it turns out he was, like, a friend all along. And he, like, helps, like, Strider helps Bilbo, like, write a song. It's, like, really cute, but the song's way too long. I'm not gonna do it. But, I can play it for you after this is over, but okay. It's literally, like, 1,000,000 pages long. So then they have this, like, council the next day, right? And so it's, like, all the, like, powerful people, most of the characters I just named are there, you know? And they're like, what are we gonna do about this situation? And so they're like, well, we gotta get the ring to Mordor, right? We gotta destroy it. But we also have to, like, figure out what we're gonna do to take on Sauron, because even without the ring, he's still gathering all these forces, right? And so everyone sort of shares what they know about things and about the status of armies. It's, like, very political based. And then they're like, who's gonna take the ring? And Bilbo, this old ass Bilbo, he gets up and he's like, all right, I get it. You want me to take, I'll do it. And they're like, no,
you were doing that with your wine glass in your hand, like an old rich person, like swirling it and sniffing the wine, you know, and oh my god.
So they have all this political talk, and they all share, they make a plan, they get this, like, fellowship together, right, which is, like, just essentially a group of dudes, and they're all gonna go, and they're gonna figure it out, right, and that's their job. It's college. But you also hear that Gollum, right, okay, backtrack, chapter 1,
oh,
chapter
no.
1.
Okay.
Chapter 2. When Bilbo, or maybe chapter 2 for sure. When Frodo and Gandalf in the beginning are talking about the ring, like, at the very beginning, and he's, like, explaining all the shit to him, he tells him that about Gollum, right? And Frodo deadass looks at Gandalf and is like, well, why don't we murder him?
What the fuck?
And Gandalf was like, whoa, girl.
No. Slow down, babe. What?
He was like, no. Fuck? But he explained it was because, like, they pity him. Like, no one has been able to kill Gollum because he's so gross and weird and, like, pitiful. Like, that they can't kill him because he's just...
It's
sad.
just too sad.
Yeah. But Frodo's like, let's kill him.
Yeah, let's kill him.
And so that is, like, kind of a theme that
Frodo's
comes back later. Me too, bitch, honestly. So Frodo's like, let's kill him. And then they find out he's in jail, right? Essentially, the elves are keeping him captive. But then, at the Council of Elrond, the elves are like, hey, we let him go. We felt a little bad. Well, essentially, they were being a little lenient with him, and then a bunch of orcs came and, like, wreaked a lot of havoc. Orcs are just, like, creatures. They're evil.
I know what orcs are.
Yeah.
That sounded so, like, I know what orcs are. I just meant, like, I played fantasy games with orcs before.
Oh, well, yeah.
That's all I meant. I didn't mean to be mean about it. I'm so sorry.
Thank you for apologizing. But so he essentially, like, escaped from prison, and everyone's like, why didn't we just kill Gollum when we had the chance, right? So Gollum is escaped from jail. We don't know where he is anymore,
Okay,
but
bye,
it's
Gollum.
rumored that he's like working for Sauron now because he's like so easily corruptible that that Sauron is just like letting him do things like dirty work for him, essentially. And so I'm trying to turn back on. I feel like I've hit a low.
Come back. Up. Energy. Energy.
Okay, so they create the Fellowship, which I'm going to name some names for you. You're going to be hearing them a lot.
Am I going to remember them?
Hopefully.
Yep. Okay.
So Gimli,
Legolas.
right? Orlando Bloom. Sam, Merry, Pippin. So the original hobbits who have like been there. And then Gandalf and Frodo.
Okay.
Frodo's obviously the main character.
Gimli.
And Boromir. Did I say Boromir?
No. Boromir.
Yeah. So they're like, we're gonna go.
I don't know why I don't want to say it like that, but I do.
They're like, we're gonna go southwards. And we're gonna... Essentially, they're like trying to make up their mind if whether they want to go to Minas Tirith or if they want to go straight to Mordor.
That's a pretty...
I know, right? It's in Gondor, right? Which is like the name of the region. Yeah, I know. And so there's like King Theoden, I think it's King Theoden, is in Minas Tirith, and there's like an army there, and like Boromir, that's like his dad. And he's like, I gotta go to my people and like see what's going on. There's some stuff discussed about it in the Council of Elrond that they dive into more detail about, but he's like, this is where I want to go. And then everyone else is kind of like, oh, well, we should probably go actually to Mordor to destroy the ring. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's kind of the priority. But Boromir's like, I mean, this kind of happens later, but Boromir's like, I'm gonna go regardless of whether or not y'all come, is essentially like his mindset. So he's really trying hard to convince everybody, like, let's go to Minas Tirith so I'm not alone. So that's kind of like his storyline throughout this part. And they like run into some wolves, and Gandalf like gets into it, like fights them, and they are defeated or whatever.
The wolves?
The wolves, yeah.
Sad.
And then I know, but they're like evil.
Okay.
And then they come to this like door that they gotta go through, and it's like a riddle door, and you gotta like say a certain phrase, and they're like
6 afraid of 7? 7,
8, 9. And so they're in these like mines, and Gandalf is like, I know the way. So even though it's super dark, I can lead us there. But then he like gets a little like not lost, but he goes into this place, and they end up seeing the grave of a hobbit that was in the first book, and they're like, oh, so he's dead. Oh no. Because at the council of oh no. Because at the Council of Elrond they were like, we don't know if he's alive, and then they're like, oh well, we found his grave, so she passed away.
I love TikTok.
And so they find his grave, and then they find this thing where it's like Balin's last thing that he wrote, and it's like, we're trapped in this room that he was dead in. Yeah. And he's like, oh no. It was like essentially his last words was like, oh my god, we're trapped. And then they hear this like thudding, booming noise, and they're like, oh my god. And then all of these orcs are just like, hey sisters. Hey
sisters.
Like,
that's a direct quote from J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
What?
Nothing. I just love the idea of like James Charles orcs. The James Charles is Scooby-Doo
Hey
video.
sisters!
Hey sisters! And then there's like this big fucking thing that's there too, and they're like, what is that? Like, it's so evil. And they like get out, they like jump down this thing, and they like, there's like a troll. And they don't defeat all of them, but they like kill a lot of people. Like Legolas kind of comes into clutch, and like they're just like killing all these orcs, and then they escape a little bit, and they're like running through the mines. And then Gandalf is like, I need to take a nap. I am old. I would like to rest. Even though there's like this whole like there's this whole army of orcs essentially and trolls after them, and he's like, we need to sit down. And then they're like, oh my god, the orcs are here, so they start running again. And then there's this like big hallway that's on fire, and they like get through it. And there's this, like, bridge, and it's, like, the bridge of Khazad-dûn, I think is how it's pronounced. And it's this bridge that was built there that's, like, really thin, so only one person can go at a time. And it was built strategically so that the people who were coming in to the mines or whatever, they had to go one at a time. They couldn't just, like, all rush in. So it was easy to kill them if they had to go over this tiny-ass bridge one at a time, you know what I mean? And so they're going through this bridge. And then they see this giant-ass creature called a Balrog, just like burst through the flames that are in this hallway. A Balrog.
Balrog sounds.
Balrog?
It sounds like Balrag.
I know.
That's what I hear. That's all I hear.
I know. There's some weird ass names in this series, I'll tell you what. But
That's
so
funny. Oh my god.
they like are running away from this thing, and then Gandalf is like on the bridge, and he's like, "You shall not pass," which is like the iconic. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but that's like the most iconic quote from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he's like, "You shall not pass," and then he breaks the bridge, and then Gandalf and the Balrog fall, and Gandalf dies.
No.
And he
For
just
real?
like he just like falls and dies, and everyone's like, "What the fuck?" But
Is
they
he,
have to
like,
keep
for
running
real
away.
dead, though? He's coming back, right?
Well, to everyone's knowledge, he's dead.
Okay.
He fell with a creature that he couldn't overpower to the ground.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
who's to say?
So he's coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we had a discussion about this in class where it was like the first time everyone read the book, everyone
Yeah.
was like, "Yeah, well, Gandalf's coming back. What's this about?"
Yeah,
you know,
obviously,
like,
yeah.
But so he like dies, right? And they like run away. And then they like get out of there, and they discover that they're with like the elves, like they're in this like elvish territory, and they're like met by these elves, and they blindfold everybody, and like Gimli and Legolas is an elf.
I love the name Legolas.
I know. Oh, so they see the creepy man, right? What?
There's a fucking spot. Anyways, a parking spot. We missed it earlier.
That's so funny. Okay, so and Legolas is like, "I should not have to be blindfolded," and Gimli's like, "Well, I don't want to be blindfolded either," and they get in this weird argument, and then they're like, "Well, we're all gonna be blindfolded." They're like, "We have to blindfold Gimli because he's a dwarf, and they don't like dwarves. Like elves aren't supposed to like dwarves," so they're like kind of weird about it, and they're like, "You have to be blindfolded." And so they all get blindfolded, and they go to Lothlorien, which is like this land of the elves or whatever. And Frodo and Strider, who is now revealed that his name is Aragorn.
Oh,
Right.
This is literally like the Bible. Everybody just like changes their names like every couple chapters.
And then Gimli is kind of like hanging out with the elves a little bit, even though they don't really like him because he's a dwarf. He's kind of like getting on their good side, and then they're kind of like, "Okay, we kind of like this guy.
Yeah,
like,
get down with the
sorry."
dwarf, yeah.
Yeah, they're like really into it. And so they're making up, and then there's this elven woman there named Galadriel who's like super powerful and like
That's
beautiful.
literally an angel name.
I know. Is that
This
true?
is literally like or it's very close to
Oh,
like Gadriel
yeah.
is one, but
Well, yeah, the elves have like these really
that's crazy. Okay, yeah.
names.
I wonder if you knew that. Probably.
Yeah, I'm sure he was religious. But yeah, but Boromir sees Galadriel, who's like this super cool like elf lady, and he's like, "I don't know about her." And then Aragorn's like, "Excuse me, like, do not talk shit about my girlfriend." They're not dating, but he's like, do not talk about her." He like gets really like angry about it. So people are like not vibing with Boromir at this point. To be completely honest, he's being a little weird.
He's boring.
Boromir.
Oh my god.
So then Galadriel is like, "Hey, Sam and Frodo, I want to show you something," and they like show him this thing called the Mirror of Galadriel, which is sort of similar to the thing from Dragon Age. It's more similar. It's like a body of water. They look into it. They see a thing.
Like Well of Sorrow.
Yeah. But it's not like getting all the knowledge. It's like they see something that like could be or like might be or like something they might need to be wary of. Like they don't know if it's like completely set in stone. But so they look in this mirror, right? And Sam sees like the Hobbit. Sam sees the Shire.
Yes.
Like their place where they live, like Bag End, just like destroyed and like taken over, like looted by people, and just like the hobbits are just like going through all these hardships. You know, he like has a really bad time. He like does not like what he sees. He freaks out a little bit, and then Frodo's like, "Bet, I'm gonna do it now. My turn." And he like looks over the thing, and he sees this guy who looks kind of like Gandalf, but also kind of not like Gandalf, and he's dressed in all white, and he's like, "Who's that?"
The other Gandalf. They're both good.
I don't know.
You told me earlier.
Well, no, yeah, you're right, but I don't know if the guy he sees is Gandalf or not.
I hear you.
Because it could be Saruman the White. There's two really old.
Okay.
There's a lot of really old wizards, but Saruman and Gandalf are like the two main ones who kind of look similar because they're both just like old dudes with big hats. you know, as wizards are.
Yeah, totally.
But so he's like, I don't know, could be either. And then he sees the Eye of Sauron. He sees this eye, and he's like, oh, I gotta get out of here. Like, he can't be looking at me. And he feels the same presence he feels when he, like, puts on the ring. Mm-hmm. And so it's making him really nervous. And after what happens after that? Why did I just like,
you were like, and that's it. That's over.
The whole story.
Hope you like.
Oh, and then Frodo is like, hey, I don't want this ring anymore. This stressed me out. Like, yeah. I'm done. And he's like, Galadriel, you take it. And she's like, no, dude.
Yeah, fuck that.
But then they all decide that they're gonna, like, they're gonna head off, right? The main group, the Fellowship, is gonna go. Then they're gonna really make a steadfast decision on whether they want to go to Minas Tirith or they go to Mordor. Because right now they could still go either way. And before they part, Galadriel gives them all some presents. And, like, she gives, like, some of her hair to Gimli. And she gives this phial of light, which is just, like, this thing that glows. It's, like, captured from a star, to Frodo. Mm-hmm. And she gives him, like, a sword, I think, as well. Merry and Pippin just, like, get, like, money, essentially. Or, like, gold things. And then... she gives Aragorn this, like, brooch that has this, like, green thing in it that, like, comes into play later. And then Sam gets this, like, box of dirt with a seed in it, and she's like, wherever you plant this, it will, like bring life back to the area where you plant it, because Sam's, like, a farmer back home. And then they, like, leave on a couple of boats.
Yeah.
And at this point, Legolas and Gimli are kind of like bros. And Sam and Frodo, like, Sam is like, I will follow you to the ends of the earth. And Frodo's like, all right, my guy, you know? Like, so it's, like, very interesting energy. But they do, like, love each other. And they, like, head out on the boats. And then they're, like, going down this river. And Sam's like, yo, I think I saw, like, some eyes in the river last night that were following us. And then Aragorn is like, oh, yeah, that's Gollum. Did you not notice that he's been following us this whole time?
What?
Yeah. And they're all like, excuse me? Sam is like, we should kill him.
Yes!
And then Frodo is like, no, we cannot kill him.
But Frodo wanted to kill him.
No, but Sam tries to kill Frodo. Like, in the third part of the book, he, like... I love Sam. Best character, in my opinion.
I picked the right one. I'm Sam.
And so then they're like, Gollum is following us, and then they see this, like, bird-like creature following them, and Legolas is just like, boom, kills it. Like, stabs it. Legolas is, like, always on it, like, never falls short. Legolas does.
I love Orlando
and so,
Bloom.
I know. And so they come upon this crossroad where it's like, right now is the crucial time. We have to pick whether or not we're gonna go to Mordor or Gondor, right? And Boromir's like, please let me plead my case to you. And Frodo's like, no, dude, because I just need to think about it myself. And he has this, like, big dramatic moment. And he's like, I'm going off in the woods. He goes off in the woods to this, like, other river area. And he's, like, thinking. And then Boromir, like, comes out of the woods, like, towards Frodo and, like, is looking kind of creepy. And Boromir's like, hey, so I think that I should, like, offer you some advice, maybe, about whether or not we should go to Minas Tirith. And Frodo's like, no, because I know you want to go a certain way. Like, you've made your opinion very clear. I would just like to make up my mind. And to be completely honest, I think I would like to go to Mordor and not Minas Tirith. That's, like, kind of what I'm feeling. And Boromir's like, are you sure about that? And he gets, like, a little violent. He gets a little weird. And he's like, you should give me the ring. We shouldn't destroy it. It should go to, like, the people who are in charge, which should be me. And he's, like, really corrupt. And Frodo's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And he puts on the ring and he disappears. And then Boromir, like, freaks out because he's like, oh my god, what have I done? But he's also like, oh, the ring. The ring. And Frodo's like, I can't do this with the group anymore. I'm done. I'm removing myself from this toxic. He doesn't even go back. You know how he, like, went in the woods? He doesn't even go back to everyone. He's just like, I'm leaving. And he just leaves. And he goes and he sits on this, like, throne thing on the mountain, and he sees, like, war, and it's like, I'm not gonna get into that because it's, like, weird. But there's, like, this whole thing that he does while I don't know. But he's, like, essentially like, peace out, sisters, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And then Boromir finds his way back to, like, the Fellowship, right? Sans Gandalf, obviously, because Gandalf is dead. And he's like, you guys, oh my god, Frodo is gone. We got in, like, this weird little argument, and then Aragorn's like, well, what's it about? And Boromir's like, I don't want to talk about it, to be completely honest.
That's not suspicious at all.
Really, like, weird, and Aragorn's like, I don't trust this guy. But Aragorn runs with Sam to, like, they split up to go find him, essentially. And then they, like, can't find him, and Aragorn's getting really frustrated, and then Sam is like, well, where would Frodo go? To the boats, right? Because you need to have a boat to go in the direction we're going. And so Sam runs back to the camp, because everyone had already left, to go look for Frodo, and he sees a boat moving itself with some supplies into the river, and he, like, jumps on him, you know, and he's like, I'm coming with you, dude. I'm not like, I love you. Like, I'm not leaving you. Like, this is not... Yeah. And he's like, we can leave those fuckers behind, but I'm coming with you. And then they set off. And that's the end of the first part of the book.
The first part of the book?
Yeah, there's 3 parts. So this one was the Fellowship of the Ring, and then there's the 2 Towers, and then there's Return to the King. Sam and Frodo are going off on this boat alone. And we go to where Boromir, Aragorn, all those dudes who were there, they all kind of split up. Boromir sort of goes off by himself, and then he gets killed by all these orcs, and he dies in Aragorn's arms. Super sad, but it's kind of like, well, he was kind of weird. Not that he deserves to die because he's weird, but he was just being a little sketchy near the end there. And they're, like, looking for the hobbits, right? And they find these hobbit prints, but then they find this, like, pile of, like, dead orcs on the hill, and they're like, what's this about? They find this brooch that belonged to Pippin in the ground. And then there are these guys who come, named Eomer, I don't know. And they're, like, talking about how Saruman, who's this, like, evil guy, is, like, preparing for a war in Isengard. Saruman the White, he's the other wizard. He's, like, in this place called Isengard, gathering these evil armies to start a war, because he hates Gandalf. So you see them looking for the hobbits. They're, like, looking for Merry and Pippin specifically, and then they see this, like, figure that looks like a really creepy wizard, and you're like, who is this? And then it goes back in time to before all of this had happened, and Merry and Pippin had been held captive by some orcs. And they hear them sort of discussing some politics, and then Pippin, like, gets out of his bindings, and he's, like, pretending he's still bound. And he's, like, listening to them, and they go up on this hill, and then, they are, like, in this skirmish, and then these people come and kill all of the orcs, and they, like, run away, but Pippin leaves his brooch in the ground, which is what they saw in the previous chapters, right? It's kind of, like, a little all over the place in this one.
Listen, I gotta tell you, I hate a flashback.
I know. This one, I wish it was, like, a little more distinct. It just kind of, like... It's not even, like, a flashback. It's just, like, meanwhile, but also, like, before, you know? It's not, like, someone thinking back. It's just, like, time is difficult in this one, you know?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I just am thinking about, like, I can't even think of a scene in a movie where I'm like, oh, a flashback, yay.
Yeah,
you
okay,
know, I just never liked the, like, device of a flashback. Just show me that at the beginning, then.
I hear what you're saying.
Flash forward? Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Oh, all right, okay.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
I hear what you're saying. I agree.
Like, you start the movie out as, like, a little kid, and then it's about you as an adult.
Yeah.
Or stuff like that.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. Like The Greatest Showman.
He's an adult first in that movie, isn't he?
I don't know, you know? I know they sing that kid song, and then he grows up, and he's wearing the hat.
Yes.
It's really the only
But the
thing
very first scene in the movie is him old, though. And then it goes back to little kid.
Oh, so how do you feel about... Oh, because he's like, ladies and gents, this is the moment you've waited
but it's
for.
because that is, like, a not real thing.
That's not real?
Not that scene.
What, doesn't
like
he just, like, do that later in life? Isn't that what his whole thing... Don't they sing it a lot?
Yeah, but in the beginning, it's like what his kid brain, like, wants, you know.
Oh, but
I don't know if that's true. I don't know. I'm not into film at all.
I don't know enough about The Greatest Showman, so you could be right.
I love that movie, and everybody else hates it.
I hate it. I think it's bad,
understand.
But that's okay. They leave the thing, and then you go to Merry and Pippin escaping. They run into this giant tree. So it's an end, is what it's called. Mm-hmm. His name is Fanghorn, and he's like, come with me, and he like carries him to this home where there's like all these like giant ass tree people, and they like have this council, and they're like, Saruman is killing all the trees and like being super evil, and we hate him, so we're gonna wake all the trees up, and we're gonna go kick some ass, and we're gonna fight him in the war that's coming to Isengard.
Wake the trees up?
Yeah, because all the trees are just like asleep. But they're Ents, but not all of them, just the Ents. So some of the trees are like tree people. And they're like ancient and old, and they're giant. And they're cool, and they sing songs. Everybody kind of sings in this. But so there's these giant trees, and they're like talking to the hobbits, Merry and Pippin, and they're like, y'all are cool, we want to help you, right? And they're like, all right, you seem pretty powerful. So they're like, we're gonna go and do that. And then it goes back to Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, right, who are tracking Merry and Pippin down, trying to find them. And so they find the cut ropes from Pippin left in the forest, and they're like, okay, so they're somewhere around here. And they see this creepy man, and they're like, what are you doing here? And then he's like, it's me, Gandalf. And they're like, oh, Gandalf.
Oh, I thought he died.
But he's back, and now he's Gandalf the White, and he's like leveled up. And he's like, I'm super powerful. I'm even more powerful now because I killed the Balrog. Balrog. I killed it, and so now I'm Gandalf the White. And everyone's like, okay, really
level
cool,
up,
dude. He like literally just like levels up. And then they're like, Sauron sort of thinks that the ring is with them and not with Frodo, who is like off with Sam still. So they're like sort of like throwing him off his track. And they go to this place, and they're like, we need to get some armies together in Minas Tirith. And so they go to King Edoras. And they see this king who's like essentially like super old and like corrupt a little bit, but they see Wormtongue, who's his like advisor, and he's like super evil, and he's like kind of corrupting everybody. And Gandalf is like, hey, you cut it out. And they get in this like sort of like verbal argument, and then Theoden is like, go away, I'm done with you. And he sort of like banishes Wormtongue, and Wormtongue's like, all right, bye, and he like leaves. And then Gandalf gets this horse that like kind of glows and is really cool, named Shadowfax.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I gotta change my dog's name to Shadowfax.
Yeah, it's like a really cool name. It's super like, Shadowfax is always like coming in to save the day. And then everybody gets like a bunch of armor and weapons. I wonder
if that, in Skyrim there's a horse named Shadowmere, and it's like all black and like kind of a ghost. I don't know. I don't really understand it. And I wonder if it's like kind of off that.
I don't know how much of that is rooted in, but like it did set up like a wide base for lore. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I don't mean that it's like directly associated.
No, but I know what you're saying.
Like a Easter egg. Yeah. Because they do a lot of that in that game. Anyway.
Yeah. So Aragorn and Gimli and Legolas all get some weapons from Theoden. And then Éowyn is there, who's just this like girl who's important later. And then Gandalf is like, okay, peace out, and he leaves again. And they're like, what the hell, Gandalf? And so now it's just Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli, the original squad, back at it. And they go to this place called Helm's Deep. And there's this like big battle with the orcs. And they like have some like riders of Rohan. It's like these like soldiers with them. Mm-hmm. So there's this like kind of fight that breaks out. And then Gandalf comes back and like kind of saves the day at the last minute, and they're like, okay, well, we won this battle. And so they set out, Aragorn, Gandalf, Legolas, and Gimli again. It's like a lot. Mm-hmm. Oh my god. They like set out with some guys, and they're going to Isengard, which is where Saruman is, collecting all of his evil armies. Mm-hmm. And they're like, we're gonna confront him once and for all and like do this war, right? Mm-hmm. And so they like go to his place, and it's like the land is barren and it's like evil looking, and it's getting dark outside because there's so much evil everywhere. It's like really scary. And they get there, and like Merry and Pippin are just like sitting right there at the entrance, and they're like, "Hey guys, we've been waiting for you. The trees took us here. Like,
The trees
we're
took us
squatting
here."
up with Fanghorn or whatever, and we're gonna like take down Isengard. Like, we've been waiting." And Gandalf and Theoden go off to meet the Ent to like be like, "Oh my god, hey, like thank you," or whatever. And everybody who's left behind like sort of catches up, and they have like this moment where like Gimli and Pippin like have this cute exchange about like some tobacco, and they like share things, and they're like, "We love each other." And then they figure out that the Ents had like flooded the underneath of Isengard and like killed a whole bunch of orcs, and they were like super powerful beings that can like just do stuff like that.
Okay.
And then Gandalf's like, "Hey Saruman, like let's talk. Like I'm done with this shit. Like stop it." And then Wormtongue is like, "Hey, I'm here. This is where I ran off to after you banished me from Theoden, right?"
Okay.
And they're like, "What the hell?" And he gets like super mad, and they have this exchange, and Gandalf ends up like breaking Saruman's staff, and he's like, "Fuck you and your magic," and like is like, "I'm super powerful now."
Oh my god.
And then
Wizards.
Wormtongue grabs a crystal ball and then just like throws it out the window.
Why?
And then he tries to like hit Gandalf with it. Yeah.
What?
And then he's like Pippin like picks it up, and then they just like are like, "Goodbye."
What the fuck?
And so
That's so anticlimactic.
yeah, they're like, because they're like, "We pity you. We don't want to kill you. You're like too pathetic to kill."
Oh my god, just kill him.
And so they're like, "Goodbye." And they like leave him, but they have this thing.
I gotta tell you, I love a good character death.
Yeah.
I
Well,
do.
Gandalf has died.
I thought
No, he came back, but
Yeah.
that's like
No,
Boromir died.
like a dead.
Boromir is our first.
Yeah,
No,
Boromir.
will not be our last.
Okay,
for sure.
I'm ready. Let's go.
So they hear Saruman like freaking out because he's like, "Why did you throw that out the window? That was so important to me. Like, what is wrong with
What
you?"
the fuck?
And then Pippin at night like wakes up, and he like touches it and like looks into it, and he sees the eye of Sauron that's been like looking at Frodo this whole time. And then Sauron like looks at him and like knows their location. And he like or not like he doesn't know everything, but he like doesn't get to read the thoughts of Pippin, but he like sees him, and he's like thinks that Pippin now has the ring because he like fucked up and he like shouldn't have touched the thing, right? And then Gandalf's like, "What the hell?" Like Gandalf wakes up, he's like,
Yeah.
"What are you doing? Like stop it," you know? And then everyone gets really mad at him, but they're like, "Oh my god."
Just made this dumbass. Get him out.
I know. But then Gandalf is like, "Okay, well, let's go somewhere far away from Mordor," so they think that the ring isn't wherever Frodo is, right? Because they assume Frodo's like going to Mordor, right? Because that's like his quest that he promised to the council.
Yes.
And that is the end of like the first half of that book. And then it goes back in time.
Oh my god, not again.
And it's at the same time as all of this stuff in the first half was happening.
There's
it's
more
Sam and
stuff?
Frodo. This is Sam and Frodo's story
Oh,
now.
good God,
So
okay.
while all of this stuff was happening with Aragorn and Gimli and Legolas and Merry and Pippin and Gandalf and Fanghorn and Eowyn.
How do people just like know this stuff? Like know
I
it,
don't.
know
I
it.
just said all that.
Like I know, like you know it, but like
I know, like
But
people who are
some
really
people
into
could,
it.
like-
I couldn't.
you know what I mean.
Yeah, no,
Like,
I was thinking about that. I could never be such like a diehard fan like that because it's just so much information that I don't think I have the capacity to like hold.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's crazy.
Yeah. So it's Sam and Frodo, and they're trying to go through Mordor, and they're going through all these mountains, but they keep getting lost, and they have to like backtrack.
Mm-hmm.
They're like having a really tough time, and it's like stinky and dirty.
Stinky.
Stinky.
Oh.
And they keep going, and they like climb up this thing, and then they like fall off a cliff. And then Sam's like, "I have this like magical rope that was given to me by Galadriel from first
The
book."
sexy one. Yep.
Yes. And he like ties it on a thing, and they like get down, and you know, like Sam is like obsessed with magic and with elves and stuff, and he's like, "Oh crap, like we can't reach the rope anymore." And then he's like, "I really wish that the rope would fall right now," and then it like falls, and he like gets it. But they don't like equate that with anything, and I don't know if like I'm just drawing conclusions, but I was like, that's kind of magical.
That is magical.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I wish I could do that. Oh my god.
Because we fall down. Thank you. I would like this thing to fall.
I would like the TV remote in my hand, please.
That like in Harry Potter, they have like Accio, and then you like Accio? It's like a spell. And then
Harry
like,
Potter.
Harry Potter. Dobby.
Harry Potter.
Dobby.
Dobby.
Dobby in it, love.
Well, welcome to Love Island. I'm Harry Potter. She's right mugging me off, mate.
I'm Ron. So Sam gets the rope. It's so funny. And then they're like, hey, Gollum's here. And he like jumps on him. He like jumps off the thing and he jumps onto him and starts like fighting them. Yeah, he's like gross and old. And like they like threaten him with a knife and they tie him up and they're like, take us to Mordor, or like to Mount Doom, essentially, like get us in there, like get us in Mordor. And because Gollum like knows the way in because he like works for them, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, I'll take you. And they go to these like gates that are called like the Teeth of Mordor, and Gollum's like, I am not going in there. Like I'm not gonna go in I'm not gonna go in this entrance. It's too much. Like it's simply too much. There's too many men here. I'm not going in. And he's like, I know a secret way that we can go, but it's a little dangerous, but we can go. And they're like, I don't know if we can trust him. But at the same time, they see this like thing called a Nazgul, which is like a ring wraith. So it's just like these evil guys who are like possessors, like fighters for Sauron. They're like these evil guys.
Okay, yeah.
That are just following them the whole time. I have to sneeze.
Sneeze right now. Yeah.
So they see this thing and they're like, oh, like Sauron might have an eye on us because they use these things to like track people.
Eye of Sauron.
Eye of Sauron, also like Nazgul are also like an extension of the eye. And so they like they follow Gollum and they go through this thing called the Dead Marshes where it's all these like dead people.
Bless you again.
Thank you. It's all these like dead people and like Gollum's like, don't go in the water or like you're gonna like get attacked by these like dead people.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right. And so they like have a lot of this like rough journey. They're running out of food. It's like really shitty for them. And then they like Gollum disappears for a few days and then comes back. And then they hear him like saying things to himself like, ooh, like I made a promise to them, but like, should I like get my precious, which is what he calls the ring, right? And he's like, I don't know, like.
Oh,
like,
I've heard that scene where he talks about my precious.
Yeah. And so he's like, but they still are like, well, we should trust him, I think, even though they like hear him talking about all this stuff.
Okay.
I know. And so
movies be dumb for that shit. And this is a book. Books be dumb for that shit.
No, I hear you. And so they're like, we gotta go. They like travel by night, and then they like find this cute little area to like chill. And Sam is like, I really love Frodo, and he like has this really nice moment where he's like, I really love him. And then Gollum is like, I got some rabbits. Let's eat them raw. And Sam was like, no, weirdo. I'm not gonna do that.
No, weirdo.
Yeah, he's like, that is creepy and gross.
I know he said that.
I'm not gonna do that. And so they fight. They like get in this like altercation, and then Sam's like, no, we're cooking them, and then he makes them into a stew.
Oh my god.
And it's like this whole like thing. And then this guy named Faramir, who's like this like notable guy in Gondor. He comes out and he's like, what are y'all doing here? And they're like, oh, like, we're doing this thing. Like, Frodo doesn't really, like, disclose too much to him about the ring, but he's like, we're kind of, like, on this journey. We knew Boromir. And then Faramir's like, oh. And he gets, like, really weird and, like, kind of standoffish when he hears that Boromir died. And they're like, what's this about?
Huh.
And so they, like, have this, like, weird distrust between them. And then there's like this battle that Frodo and Sam witness, and like Faramir brings out this thing called an Oliphant, which is just like this giant elephant essentially, and he like kills a bunch of orcs with this like giant elephant, and that's just like kind of a thing that happens. And then they go back, and Faramir is sort of like trying to get him to talk about the ring, and Frodo's like, no, and even though he like didn't like Boromir, he's like, I'm not going to talk shit about Boromir, and then he figures out that Boromir was Faramir's brother, and like,
whoa.
So Faramir's just like upset that his brother died, and he's like wondering why he died, and then he's like, but I think I can trust Frodo, you know what I mean? So they kind of bond a little bit. And then he's like, I'm gonna take you to Minas Tirith, but we have this like hideout, and then he like blindfolds the hobbits, and he's like, let's go. And they go to this like hideout, and they
blindfolding.
I know, it's like second blindfolding incident in the series.
I said lots, like it was like, you know, but
no, but
you know,
2 times is like a notable amount.
It is notable, yeah.
And so then they like wake up one night, Faramir's like, hey, there's like this weird creepy thing outside. And Frodo's like, oh, it's probably Gollum. And so he like gets up and then he's like, identify that weird thing. And he's like, oh, that's Gollum. Don't kill him, please. Like, he's important to us. And they like get Gollum. And Sam is like, let's kill him. And Faramir's like, let's kill him. And Frodo's like, no, we're not going to kill him. We need him to take us to Mordor and like get into like this place, right? And so they're like, okay, but you have to promise to be Frodo's servant. And Gollum's like, I can do that, bet. And Faramir's like, I think that everybody's gonna die. I'm not really looking too supportively on this situation. But he gives them some food, and then he like blindfolds them and takes them out of the hideout, and he's like, you're free to go. And they head southwards, and then they like notice that it's getting really dark outside all the time. Like daytime is sort of getting darker, and it's like getting really hot where they're like in the direction they're going, and they're like, this is kind of gross and weird. And then Gollum is like leading them up a mountain, and it's like really stinky and gross, and there's this huge army. It's like he describes the smells a lot.
Stinky.
And they're like going up this like mountain, and they see this army who is led by the Lord of the Nazgul, who's like this incredibly evil, weird skeleton looking man who wears this crown. And they're like, oh my god, like, I hope he doesn't see us, but he doesn't. And they keep climbing, and they go up all these stairs, and they're like, I wonder if people will write songs about us. You know, like boyfriend stuff, because they are boyfriends, and they're spending all this time together because they're in love.
Obviously.
And then Sam wakes up, and Gollum is just being, like, really weird. And Frodo's like, you need to go. And Gollum's like, no, I need to help you. And they're like, okay. And it's like really just like strange. And Gollum's like, come in this tunnel with me. This is the way in.
Don't go into that tunnel.
They go in the tunnel.
Oh my god,
it's
that's like
dark
a white
as hell.
van with candy. Like, no.
Yeah, it's really stressful. They go in this hole. And then they like hear this like nastiness, and they see these eyes. And Frodo takes out that phial of like light that Galadriel had given him in the first book. And they see this giant spider woman who's really smelly named Shelob.
From the beginning.
Yeah. And they like have this big fight, and they're like cutting through her webs, but
that's the original Stinky, right?
Yeah, that is the original. Yeah. The original Stinky herself. Da Stinky.
Oh my god, somebody give me an Oscar.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
We're getting a streamy for our podcast.
A streamy! Oh my god.
So they cut through this web that's supposed to be super hard to cut through, and they like run away, but like Frodo gets like stuck with Shelob, and then Gollum tries to kill Sam, and so they're like separated, and they're in this like these separate things, and Sam like almost kills Gollum but doesn't, and then he like runs over to where Frodo is, and he sees that like Frodo has like literally been stabbed with like a poison thing from Shelob, and he's like, what the fuck? And he gets really mad, and then he stabs her, and she's never been stabbed. She's supposed to be not able to be punctured by anybody. And Sam loves Frodo so much that he does something extra and like stabs Shelob, and she like runs away, but he looks at Frodo, and he's like cold, and he's not breathing, and he's dead, and he's wrapped up in this thing. And so he takes the ring from him, and he's like, I have to continue this quest now, because Frodo...
Oh my god, you're kidding, he's dead?
Yeah, dead ass.
I want you to know that I just sat here with my hands over my face for like a whole minute listening to that.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I love a character death.
Isn't that crazy? And so now it's Sam's job. He's like, I have to take this responsibility. Is he like dead? Well, he's dead, yeah.
Is he like dead though?
Yeah, he got stabbed and poisoned, and then he got wrapped up in this like web, and then
oh my god,
he died. And he was like, Sam was just a little too late because of Gollum. Wow. And so Sam's like feeling all this like struggle, you know. He's like, I have grown to love Frodo so much.
I'm gonna cry.
And he like puts on the ring, and he hides, and all these orcs come, and they like when he puts on the ring, he can hear the orcs talking, like he can understand their language, dude. And so they pick up Frodo, and they're like, all right, let's take him away to like the like prison essentially, right? And so Sam sort of like follows them a bit, and he's like listening to what they're talking about, and they're sort of talking about like the politics of being an orc. It's kind of interesting. They're like, yeah, well, you know the rules, like the boss says this, like, you know what I mean? It's
sorry.
That's exactly, they sing a song, you know.
What are the rules? What are the rules? What are the rules?
Hell yeah, Gorbag and Shagrat singing that classic.
Say that
The
again.
orcs' names.
Borgab.
Gorbag and Shagrat.
Shagrat.
Yes.
That's my other drag name.
Period. So he's like listening to them, and he's like gets shut behind this door, and he like can't get past it, but he can still hear them talking. And then Shagrat, I think, is like, Frodo's alive. So surprise,
You lied to me!
I know I did. So
Oh my
Frodo's
god,
not
I
dead.
knew he wasn't dead!
So Frodo's not dead, and then Sam is like, oh my god, well what am I supposed to do now? And then that's where the second book ends.
Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. It's part 1. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok, but I don't know what those are off the top of my head because Madison usually does that. But if you're on YouTube, they're on the screen. You can find all of our stuff at linktr.ee/you're kidding. linktr.ee/you're kidding. You can find our Patreon. You can find our podcast episodes. You can find our social media. Thank you for listening. We love you. We love our patrons. Okay, bye.
You're kidding.
You're kidding.